former finance director of Anglo-Irish Bank, William McAteer, has been arrested today, detained at 8 o'clock this morning under Section 4 of the Criminal Justice Act. Tom Lyons, a business correspondent with the Sunday Times and formerly of this parish, joins us in studio. Tom, what do we know about the arrest this morning of William McAteer?
Well, we know that this is the second time that Willie McAteer has been arrested. The first time was in March 2010. The big issues facing Willie is his role as finance director and chief risk officer of the bank, which meant he was somebody at the heart of the bank at a time when some very big decisions were being made. The big likely focus is going to be on the whole issue of Irish Life and Permanent and how 7 billion was taken from Irish Life and Permanent and used to boost Anglo-Irish Bank's balance sheet at a crucial time. As finance director and chief risk officer, it's obviously of great interest to the Gardaí what he might have known about this. And the second issue he's going to face is a personal issue which relates to €8 million he borrowed from the bank.
8 million.
8 million, which wouldn't have been that much at the time. The issue is around how the loans were initially given. They were given they were only secured on his Anglo shares, which promptly went to zero. So that was a big issue for him. He then changed this to full personal recourse. But I think the Gardaí are going to be asking questions about the circumstance of that and should he have been granted that loan in the first place.
This is the second time he has been arrested. When was the last time he was detained? Do you have that? It was a couple of months ago, as far as I remember.
It was March 2010, so it's a long...
Over a year.
It's over a year ago. So you can see at the very, very slow pace that this investigation is going at, that we're only getting around to the questioning of the finance director of Anglo-Irish Bank for a second time at this very late stage.
OK, well, he has been detained, as I said, under Section 4 of the Criminal Justice Act, and that allows for him to be questioned for up to 24 hours. We'll watch that space, Tom, but we'll park that particular issue there for now because Anglo is in the news for a very different reason as well. This payout to the senior bondholders, the unsecured bondholder, is one or more than one? Do we know who's going to benefit to the tune of 715 million tomorrow?
No, we don't, which is one of the most outrageous things about it. We've got $1 billion being paid out to various bondholders, and we've no idea who they are or how much money they're going to make. We know that we're paying them 100 cents or in the euro. They're being paid. Everything is being repaid to them.
This is the full deal, even though they were unsecured. So effectively, to use layman's terms, they were taking a gamble by putting money into this bank. The bank has now closed. It's gone. It is being wound up. Yet they're still getting the payout.
Worse than that, the original people who would have put this bond up, most of them have sold out to hedge funds at say 20, 30 cents in the dollar, and they sold out because they figured Ireland isn't going to be foolish enough to repay us.
Oh, how naive.
So it's the hedge funds who took the gamble that Ireland was going to repay 100 cents in the dollar who were going to clean up here. And I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of people, very happy people in London and New York.
And this, as you said, this is effectively taxpayers' money here.
This is effectively taxpayers' money, and this is an absolutely ginormous scandal, and it just seems extraordinary that we have Willie McAteer, who's been knocking around for 3 years now, being arrested on the very day before we make this outrageous payment.
On the issue of the payment, the government is saying this is part of the deal that was done by the last coalition. Now, that excuse is wearing pretty thin at this point. But the real situation is that the European Central Bank, even if Michael Noonan wanted to burn these guys, which he suggested that in the past that he might have considered, they can't, because the European Central Bank is saying, I know you'd like to do this, but you do untold damage to yourselves and you wouldn't re-enter the market next year.
Well, I think the real thing that the European Central Bank has is that it has hundreds of billions. It's pumped hundreds of billions into the Irish economy, and as a result of that, it's keeping the banks open. It doesn't want to see a default in any way in terms of Ireland at this time. It's trying to limit the disaster to Greece and keep it down
which
there.
is difficult.
Which is difficult, and it's going to be the Irish who are going to have to pay the price for that. So we've been very, very good, and we're paying bondholders who most people would expect when a bank crashed, you would expect that those people wouldn't be paid in full.
But the point that's being made, and it was being made on News Talk Breakfast this morning, was that if we decide, hang on a second, the Greeks are getting the 50% haircut, we're going to sting the bondholders here as well. That is in the short term, you obviously get the benefit of the $1 billion or the 700 odd million euro, but in the long term you'd be doing reputational damage. And the one thing that the Irish have been very good so far is trying to restore our battered reputation internationally. Is there any argument for that? Because that's what the government are saying is probably the main reason why we are, painful and all as it is, paying out this money tomorrow.
Well, that's the argument being put forward by the government, and if that's the case, you'd wonder why they don't disclose the names of the bondholders.
Why won't they?
If we could see that they were big pension funds from Germany who are going to back us in the future, if we could see that there were blue chip banks who are going to back us in the future, you could certainly see their argument. If it's the case that it's not blue chip people who are going to support us in the future, but instead it's speculators, I think that would be a very different argument that we would be having, but unfortunately those names are being kept secret.
Will we ever find out who these guys are? Because is this going to go into infamy as a group of people who'll be popping the champagne corks tomorrow? The Irish people have to suck up 3.6 billion in cuts in the budget, and we'll never know who these guys were.
It'll take an extraordinary leak for it to happen, because certainly these type of things, they aren't accessible under the Freedom of Information Act. We can't do an FOI to the NTMA, and I also think that in terms of doing an FOI to the Department of Finance, it also wouldn't work. I think it's something which we're just going to have to suck it up and hope that the government is correct in its position that eventually we'll be able to return to the markets. But it is worth recalling that this $1 billion, there'll be other $1 billion next year, which will have to be repaid, who are similarly in a weak position. And you'd wonder, are they going to be repaid in full?
Those guys are probably laughing now because they said, look, the Irish, much and all as we expected them to default in some shape or form, I'm sure they're happily towing the ECB's line, we're going to get our money next year.
Well, absolutely. I mean, they've been rewarded for taking a risk in buying, or the people who bought these bonds at less than 100 cents in the euro, at say 20 or 30 cents in the euro, they are being rewarded magnificently to the tune of hundreds of millions.